Benvenuto a Space Insiders. Io sono Tony Sewell. Come sta, Rob?
Bien.
Bene. That's Italian. Taking
Bene.
the
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's Italian.
taking the Italy, taking the family to Italy for a week. Leaving tomorrow, so I've been brushing up on my Italian, and I think this is a suitable intro for our guest this week too.
Yeah, even though he's Spanish, right?
Even here Spanish, but speaks Italian, speaks
He,
German, is a really accomplished executive within the European space ecosystem. Alvaro Ruiz is the co-founder of LeanSpace.
yeah, Alvaro is great, and I always feel so dumb when I interview folks from other countries because I don't even know, that's Italian. Um, but anyway, our interview with Alvaro is really great. It's very unique and different too. Alvaro he started his career at F1 as an aerodynamics engineer, and then made his way into wanting to study and get his master's in astrophysics, right?
Yep.
Um, and
Through
then
Australian
he,
National University, which was interesting. I didn't know that about Alvaro
yeah,
until we spoke the other day.
yeah, that was super interesting. And then he took his interest there and went to work at Telespazio as a commercial manager, working on a whole bunch of different projects, and then uh, decided to start LeanSpace, which is a very unique cloud and software based approach to the space industry.
Yeah. So, I mean, I first met Alvaro probably about 3 or 4 years ago when I was at AWS. They're really doing something interesting that they in their his and his co-founder Guillaume Teniers. They both worked at Telespazio, and they saw this problem in the industry around mission operation software, or the lack of innovation, and the very sort of static and customized nature, and the fact that I mean, so many of these companies that are operating these multi-million, potentially multi-billion-dollar constellations are operating these systems with 1980s and 1990s technology. He gives an example of one well-known space agency still operating on floppy disks. Another big geostationary satellite operator running their systems on Windows 95. I mean, it's crazy, and these guys saw the opportunity to really innovate in this area, try to bring their solution to the cloud, and take on some of these legacy players to bring a more up to date solution to their customers, but also a more modern solution. Try and bring space into the 21st century. So great discussion.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with it, if you think about the Apollo era uh, times, if you've seen like Apollo 13, or if you've seen any of these kind of documentaries around the Apollo missions, and you see that room with like 100 people in it, probably less than that, but like a lot of people in a room with all those old monitors, looking at TV screens in front of them, looking at the orbital trajectory of a spacecraft, and they have slide rules, and they're looking through, how to conduct the mission. It's not like that today, but it's not that far off either,
Yeah.
you know. And so I remember when we were starting to work through Tony, when we were starting to partner and work on this new business in space, one of the hypotheses we had was, how can you take a lot of that and operate it in the cloud, especially because at that time it was right when COVID hit too. And you were thinking about, how do you operate a mission remotely, even, aside from, I think, all the benefits of doing a lot of this purely in software and cloud, but how can you actually operate a virtual mission operation center,
Mm.
where people might not be in the same room? I mean, it's very
Right.
possible, right? So when you think about what those rooms look like physically, it's a little bit of what we're talking about here with Alvaro,
Mm.
and they built a company around that, and it's really fascinating, especially for small companies. that are building satellites, that are operating satellites, or supporting customer missions. By the way, if you haven't been there, the Johnson Space Center down in Clear Lake, Texas, just I think it was a couple years ago, they completely revamped the original Apollo 11
Oh yeah,
mission op center.
that would
So
be
you
cool
can
to
go
see.
there and like do a
Yeah,
tour, and
yeah,
it's really cool. If you're ever in that area, definitely worth stopping by and checking it out.
yeah. That would be a good one to get a little private tour from Daryl Shook.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Daryl. Yeah, Daryl will give you the best free tour you can possibly imagine. Yeah,
Yeah, if you're new to Space Insiders, we interviewed Daryl about maybe 6 episodes ago. It's a good one to go and check out.
yeah.
Uh, he is
And he's
deep in the
actually worked
history
at
of
that center.
NASA. He worked at
He
that
actually
center. Yeah,
worked in the
yeah.
center, worked in the room, helping astronauts doing their spacewalks on
Yeah.
different missions. Like, yeah,
Just quickly before we go to Alvaro, so back to I think why this is a really interesting discussion for our listeners. Not only is what is their mission really interesting and how they're trying to change the industry, but I think they're an interesting company because they are they've raised numerous. They've had numerous successful raises. They've just closed, or they're in the process of closing a new round of funding to get them to the next phase. I think it shows some of the really interesting companies and technology that's coming out of Europe. One of the things I love about working in the space industry is working in Europe because it's. I think everyone rightly talks about the innovation and just the scale of some of the stuff that's coming out of that comes out of the US. But it's such an interesting community in Europe and so much heritage and deep expertise, excellent engineering and educational institutions in Europe, and the community sort of built around ESA. I know it's a bureaucratic organization and people often deride that, but there's so many interesting companies coming out of Europe, and a company like LeanSpace they've opened an entity in the US and they're doing business with the US government, and I think it's a really great story for founders in what's possible.
and I didn't realize um, that Spanish are optimists.
Oh yeah, that's right. He talked about that. I
I
don't
thought that
know.
was cool. He's like, I'm Spanish. I'm an optimist. You know.
I don't know. My friend Miriam,
Yeah.
our friend Miriam, might have something to say about that.
Yeah, we
I
should.
hope
Yeah.
Miriam didn't hear that.
But I agree with you. Europe is
Yeah.
awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
the times I've spent a lot of time over in Europe, I wish I spoke another language. I try to speak French, but it's not great. But I don't know. I feel like it's a very collaborative atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I actually have been to the ESA facility in Frascati outside of
Oh,
Rome.
cool. Yeah, that would be good.
And by the way, there's a whole series. I think it would be interesting to kind of talk through the Open Geospatial Consortium. They had an event there I attended. It was really really good, and frankly, a lot of what we talk about with Alvaro in this segment resonated with me there because it was all around data integration standards around geospatial, which is a very important topic and something the industry does need to focus on more and more. I think as we become more and more of a software type of approach to space,
Yep.
so it's
Yep.
really important.
All right. Well, I think this is a good point to get to the interview. What do you reckon?
Let's do it.
All right. See you in a minute. All right, welcome back to the show. Super excited to have with us today Alvaro Ruiz from LeanSpace. How you going, Alvaro? Great to see you again.
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Love having you. Thanks for doing this with us, Alvaro.
Mate, I've been really excited to have you join the show because look, we've known each other for a little while now, and thinking back to my previous role at AWS, LeanSpace, what I loved about working with you guys, you were like the model of a startup that was just totally embracing the full offering of AWS in terms of like you were cloud forward. You were working with partners, which was great because I was the partner guy. You were leveraging the AWS partner network to build, to create a new channel for your business. And I'll give a little shout out to Miriam. I hope she's listening, but she always raved about working with you guys. And it's been a pleasure crossing paths with you over the years.
Likewise, yeah, I think AWS and LeanSpace, we share the common vision. Where do we see the space industry going? And I'm happy to share a bit of what I have in mind during today's interview.
Yeah, awesome. So maybe just if we could start off just with a little bit of like how you ended up where you did. You've got a really interesting background. Formerly a engineer at one of the big guys, Telespazio. You've managed projects. You're obviously an accomplished European businessman, speak multiple languages, advisory board member at the Lifeboat Association. Or foundation. I haven't heard of that before. I'm really actually interested to find out a little bit more about that later too. But like, what led you to LeanSpace?
It's a good story, I think, and I think I have a background that doesn't come from space. So I'm an engineer. I've got a master's in mechanical engineering, and I started working as such. I started working actually doing R&D on Formula One race cars. And I was working for Pininfarina, or with Pininfarina, working on Ferrari Formula One race cars. That was very interesting. It was very technical, and very like state of the art. From there, I moved into other engineering disciplines. So I've worked in automotive. I've worked in civil engineering. I worked in aerospace back in the day, a little bit. I worked in earthquake engineering even. So I've been doing. I have a quite long career working on different industries, seeing different ways of doing things. And at some point, because I've got a very curious mind, I did a degree in astrophysics, a, a bit just for fun, but it completely sucked me in. It's so cool. Astrophysics is very theoretical, so it was about cosmology, exoplanets, quantum mechanics, relativity, all these things. But space hooked me in. And I was like, wow, I want to work in space. And of course, I didn't want to be an astrophysicist because it's very theoretical. But I thought, hey, how can I apply my engineering skills to the space industry? So that's how I landed in this industry, which I think it's an interesting way of landing because a lot of space professionals have only worked in space. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I bring a fresh perspective to this industry also on how things are done somewhere else.
Just but by the way, Formula One, F1 is so fun. I went there. I think it was 2 years ago with my father, my brother, and my oldest son. We had a great time. It was in Austin, so it was really freaking hot, but it was great. And yeah, AWS does a lot with F1. We do a lot of like customer engagement in those the different races and things. It's a blast. But the thing that is I really think is so fascinating because I do not have a physics background. I don't have an automotive background. You can see the similarities between aerospace, aeronautical engineering, I think, and F1. And one of the things that fascinates me the most is that these things are going 200 miles an hour around corners and things, and just the way they're designed, like help them stick to the road. So it's pretty cool. I mean, I could see how your interest could translate into different industries, and I think it's really unique that you've done that. What was the just so I understand what was the sequence of you going from being an engineer and working on like F1 to getting your astrophysics PhD, and then was it from there that you had this kind of bigger vision around what you think you can contribute to the space market or industry?
So the several steps I took. So I was working as R&D engineer. I was actually working on aerodynamics of the cars. So
Hmm.
working on the airfoils and sticking the cars to the ground.
Yeah.
Um, and it was very interesting job. It was very technical, and I'm an engineer, so I like my tech stuff. But my strengths are not on hardcore engineering. My strengths are somewhere else. So then I started to look for other jobs or other roles, let's say, to develop more my management skills, business skills, project management specifically. So I went to several industries. I've traveled the world for work. There was a period in which I was literally doing business from Japan, Taiwan, Canada, Mexico. So this opened my mind a lot. I worked in industrial engineering, or civil engineering, in the crossroads, building or making really really big projects in countries like Russia or Indonesia. So I think I saw all these different ways of working, not only technical or programmatic, but also like cultural. And then at some point, this astrophysics degree just tied everything together. And I had all the tools that I thought I needed in my tool set. And then I said, okay, this is what I want to do now. I want to spend my career, actually, the rest of my career, making an impact in this industry. So that's how it happened.
Is your interest in, traveling and meeting other cultures and working with other, international entities and things, is that what kind of is there a correlation between that and space in particular, you think?
It's a good question. Space is inherently a very international industry.
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
So
Yeah, it's really
yeah,
unique.
so maybe I never thought about it, but now that you mention it, yeah, it's actually really cool because, I mean, I cannot drive to meet my customers. No, I need
Yeah,
to fly.
especially in Asia.
Indeed.
I love
So
how there's so many people. It's like, hey, you're going to Japan. Why don't you swing by Australia on the way? I tell you, you've been there. It's everything is really far, right? Tony, you know that.
Yeah, but the international nature of the space industry, I think, and this the multicultural aspect of it is a really, it's one of the things that I love the most about it. Like I'm not a trained engineer, but I've always been in the space industry and technical management roles. But one of the guys I used to work with, David Freeman, whenever we were having a bad day, he would always say, like, just think about like what we're doing and who we're working with, and the countries we get to travel with, and compare that to what some sort of regional cloud salesperson is dealing with. So like we
Yeah.
are really really lucky. We get to learn a lot about the world through the industry.
indeed, I cannot agree more. That said, the industry has a lot of diversity on the cultural aspect, but still has a lack of diversity in ways of working. And I think this is the next derivative, if you will, and it's something that, for example, we are trying to break through with LeanSpace.
So tell us about that, because I've heard the story of how you and Guillaume founded LeanSpace, but tell us about like your experience and what led to that. Like, oh, there's something here, and we need to do it.
Yeah. So as I said before, I have worked in several industries. So when I arrived to space, I was like, wow, these guys, this is the state of the art, and in many aspects, it is. To my surprise, on the software side of things, they're stuck in the 70s, 80s, 90s. It was really jaw dropping. Even though I'm a mechanical engineer, I saw a massive opportunity to actually, let's say, empower the growth of the industry through bringing digital technologies and helping to change the mindset on how space missions are operated. What we're doing at LeanSpace, just because it ties to this, is we're bringing this concept of software-defined ground segments. So in a space mission, you need, you have the spacecraft flying, you have the launcher, which is the rocket that brings the spacecraft to orbit, and on the ground you have a control center, and this control center is basically software. You have some antennas, which is basically the pipe to communicate with the satellite. But the control center is where the magic happens, if you will. It's the brain of the mission. It's how you communicate with the spacecraft, how you make sure that everything is okay, how you resolve problems, how you plan the activities, how you make sure that the spacecraft it's in the orbit has to be everything is there. And nevertheless, there's a massive focus in the space industry on the hardware side of things. And you think about it, again, I'm a mechanical engineer, so satellites, you can touch them, they're cool, launch events are amazing, they're exciting with the fire and everything. Software is just these lines of codes
in the
behind the
background.
screen. Yeah, but so I get it. But if you see, software is hitting the world, like literally all across industries. It's hitting the world, but not space. I'm probably not banking, but
So,
but yeah. Go
so
ahead.
when you saw this opportunity, can you just tell us about like how you made that leap from a probably a very comfortable position at Telespazio to like what was that first sort of year like? I mean, was this something that you and Guillaume were sort of cooking up in the back part time, and then you realize, all right, there's something here, let's go.
Yeah, we saw that the industry was completely oblivious of the benefits of modern software technologies. Um, Telespazio, it's a very good company. It's one of the legacy space companies in Europe. And we tried to introduce change from within, but big corporations, they have a lot of inertia, and it's not always so straightforward. And sometimes the fastest way to innovate is just do it yourself. Just step out, jump into the ocean and learn how to swim. So yeah, that's what we did.
That's really cool. But I guess as a follow-on question of that, Alvaro, what was your core belief that helped you feel confident enough to make that leap? Because like we just talked about, the history of the industry is like things you can feel and touch and you can see it launch on a big rocket, and a lot of the kind of the underpinning software and like how a lot of this stuff works, the brains behind a lot of this stuff is something you can't see. Um, so, was it just you didn't see anyone else doing it this way, or like what gave you that confidence that this is something I can leap into and and try to swim. At least I know how to tread water, right?
Yeah. So well, first and foremost, I'm Spanish, so I think I'm genetically optimistic.
Oh, I like
So
that. Yes, I love that.
this helps.
Yeah.
Um, I saw that. I mean, when you go to an industry that is very mature and you
Mhm.
have a lot of competition doing the one thing, you can jump in and try to do the same thing. You will always be like second, third, fourth in line. Becoming bring a differentiator is very difficult. Space, for better and for worse, it's an emerging industry. It was a blank canvas. Space missions in the past were done by agencies for agencies, if you know what I mean. So massive budgets, always like massive delays in the programs, and the missions were they were basically art sculptures.
Mhm.
Everything was like the mission. But since I don't know, a decade ago, the industry has started to undergo a commercialization. SpaceX is one of the pioneering companies of this movement, for example.
Mhm.
So when the industry commercializes, then you start to be more sensitive to budgets, time to market, efficiency over engineering perfection.
Mm.
So that is when modern technologies come into play. We are not yet there by far. That is my daily struggle in my current job, educating the industry. Because the industry, it's an emerging industry with a lot of legacy on institutional programs, really bureaucratic, very political. So they will move slowly, and it takes time to change direction. But it's coming. It's unavoidable sooner or later.
Yeah, I think most people when they think about, like a mission operations center, they're thinking about a huge room of a lot of people with monitors that look like they're from the 1970s, right? I don't think most people see what what that looks like. Even on the SpaceX launches, I feel like sometimes there's like a quick Yeah, look at all those people over there. They're doing something. They're cheering. We don't really know what they're doing, but they're sitting behind a lot of monitors, right? So a lot of what you guys are building is to operate that, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have software. We call it for the ground segment, which is all the
Hmm.
software unit on the ground. And the core of our business right now, it's mission operations. So
Hmm.
we work with satellite companies, with launcher companies. We are completely agnostic to the specific use case. But we have software, yeah, to like monitor and control the space assets, to plan all the activities, to perform the flight dynamics, manage the networks, all this software. And believe it or not, I know of more than one, let's say, defense agency that still uses floppy disks.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not kidding.
That's
And I
good.
know
The big ones or the little ones?
the big ones,
The big
the,
ones.
the biggest one in the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
And I
actual
know for
floppy, not the hard disk floppy. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Five
and
by
I know, for
sevens or something. I
example,
think they were
uh,
called. Yeah, I
I
remember
know
those.
of an Earth observation constellation with a handful of satellites that operates still today on Windows 95. So these are the realities of the space
Boy,
software right now.
So how do
So
you, as a software company, like how do you address that? So you're, and this is a great sort of segue because you're the chief commercial officer. You own go to market. So how do you approach go to market as a next generation sort of solution to this problem with really big established companies
dinosaurs.
that
Yeah.
like yeah that don't have a necessarily have a robust digital transformation strategy.
I mean, I can give you the answer, the go-to-market answer of, like, we segment the market, like SMEs, institutions, different use cases by geographies, because you have the US and Europe, and it's all the same, of course. But I think what is interesting in your question is the difference between the, let's say, the old-minded or the legacy-minded players versus the modern disruptor. And I think it's a big thing. Um, Space is basically in all in a big majority of positions of power and decision making, you have, like, gray-haired Caucasian males, and it is a problem.
Old white dudes.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is a problem.
it is.
That's the easier way
That's
of saying it, Alvaro. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're talking about how multicultural and international the industry is. Yeah, but you have the same profiles making the same decisions over and over again. So then you always get the same results. And that's why, for example, cloud is so difficult to adopt. That's why modern technologies are so difficult to adopt, because these people, they have been doing the same thing for 30 years. They've got 10 years until retirement. It's not their problem, it's the next guy's
Yeah.
problem. It's difficult. But
so
again, that's the opportunity.
yeah. So just to kind of flip that, because I don't want to dwell on the people that are not doing it well. Who are the if you can name some, like who is some of the organizations or companies that are really doing this well and get it?
Um, huh. I think in general, like, new space companies, they're more they're hungrier, and they have to compete in a game that is rigged, because the industry is very political. So then all the big organizations, they have teams of people to lobby the decision makers at the institutions, and so it's very difficult for the underdogs to actually get a footing in the industry. Um, I think there's a number of people that get it. I've crossed paths in big organizations also, but they have a tough job. They have a very tough job because, they raise their hand, but nothing happens. The inertia is just too strong, and there's no interests. I know, for example, our biggest competition out there is typically the software legacy players, and they have typically built some products in the 90s, and they have fairly cheap licenses, so they give you the product is a monolithic block, built back then with whatever old technologies, and they use it to they have to customize it severely for new missions. And people buy their products because they say, hey, they've done it for 30 years, they have the credibility, and they're good, and they deploy good solutions. The problem is that implementing these kind of products, which are old and not made for customization, they are trying to implement them for the new missions. It takes years, it takes a lot of money, and actually these companies, they don't live off of the product licenses, they live out of the engineering services. So that is the
Mm.
model. So end customers, they pay an arm and a leg to have software completely customized for them, for a righteous price, and very long lead times. We're breaking this. The problem is the credibility, because space missions are risky. So then there's a huge risk aversion in the industry, which, on the one hand, it makes sense, right? Because if a
Mm.
satellite fails, you're going to just go up there and repair it. On the other hand, what is more risky? To implement, I don't know, a modern microservices based architecture using infrastructure as code, or operate a constellation on Windows 95. That's not been maintained for 20 years.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Talk about cybersecurity.
So do you think there is going to be a tipping point? Like there will be some, like, and I think cybersecurity is a great example. Like a what is it going to take for there to be kind of an inflection point? Is it going to take like a massive like breach with one of these large operators, or where they lose control, or like what do you think can move the industry?
Yeah. It's a good question. I don't think there will be like a tipping point, like the aha moment. No, because I mean the legacy suppliers, they're good. They do a good job. It's expensive, takes time, but they manage. I think the tipping point will come gradually, by companies like us maturing to a point in which we are the credible solution for extremely complex missions. When Because I mean we're flying missions since 5 years, but um, to build the credibility to compete head to head with the space primes, it takes, I don't know, 1-2 decades. We're trying to accelerate this, but because of the risk aversion. So I think bit by
Mm.
bit, we'll just get more references. We were starting to work on defense missions. Actually, 2 years ago, we flew our first defense mission, and bit by bit, we're building the brand, we're building the credibility, the name, and it will come. It will come, but we have to be perceived as a viable competitor, or viable supplier, as just the other company next to us. And we have to have the size, because we don't have it today. So for the really, really big programs, we typically provide the technology, but we cannot own the contracts because of the size of their organization. So
Yeah.
we have to get there, and then I think, we will move the needle.
Yeah, it's we see that also in just kind of the broader defense industry also here in the US. It's interesting because, there's this excitement around with the new White House administration wanting to buy more direct, potentially, at least, in theory, want to buy more like a product company sells their widget in commercial industry that they want to sell it to government. Government's not used to doing that. They're used to what you were saying, Alvaro, which is, I'm going to give you a bunch of requirements. You're going to build that little custom thing, and then all of a sudden you end up with Windows 95 30 years later, because if you pull it away, everything else breaks, right? Um, so yeah, we're seeing that here too. And I think the one thing I wanted to ask you was, um, based on the competitive nature of this, it's hard to change. There's lots of legacy stuff. There's lots of big players. What do you think is where does a startup really focus? Like, where do you start to focus? Number one, and do you see a lot more interest from investors for startups such as yourselves, because they too see that particular entry point, whatever that might be? Like, what does that look like in your mind? And I think it's really interesting to us because I think Europe is different than the US, and which is different than in other parts of the world. So what are your thoughts there?
It's especially in Europe, it's difficult to raise capital as a software company operating in the space industry, because we are in the crossroads between space VCs and software VCs.
Hmm.
Space VCs, traditionally, they invest in hardware, in the moonshots, in the guys developing, like, I don't know, cargo vehicles to go to Mars, whatever. Because that's the funds they have raised is for that,
Hmm.
for these kind of new business models. The software VCs, they expect like SaaS returns,
Yeah.
So space industry,
Right.
it's a niche industry. Missions are typically delayed. Missions are big, and once you're in for forever. But it takes time, right? And investors, because of the nature of their business, they're impatient. So we're in the middle of between two worlds, and that makes it difficult for a company like us to raise capital in general. But you know what they say? Like when there is a gold rush, you should sell pickaxes
Picks and
and
shovels. Yeah.
spades. Yeah. So and that's what we're doing. So we are not building the mission to the moon. We are providing, the shovel to actually be able to go to the moon. That's exactly what software is an enabler. So I think we have a massive impact in let's say in the new age of the space industry, but it's behind the scenes. It's
Yeah.
not the flashy front runner. It's behind the scenes. We are an enabler.
Yeah. And but you're also aren't you a SaaS based subscription model,
We do
are you different than that?
we do have a SaaS model. We also have a license-based one because
Hmm.
as soon as you go up market, forget about providing a service. It has to be deployed on-prem, air-gapped. So
Yeah.
so we also provide this model, but it doesn't matter. The model is not so important as the industry. The industry doesn't operate as a SaaS industry.
Yeah.
So the business model doesn't scale as a CRM tool in whatever other place would scale. It's just different. It's
Do
a
you think
vertical class.
do you think with this, like, like, I think people refer to as a global rebalancing around defense and space and all these things. Do you think that there's going to be more of an urgency? And also, I mean, just the Ukrainian war and things. Do you think there's going to be a bit of a forcing function for, let's just look at Europe to start to look more at these different business models, and especially as you have people retiring more in this industry, and there's just is there going to be more of a, I don't know, just like a forcing function that where this industry or government's going to look at what you do and say, yeah, I think we need to figure out how to buy differently because we can't build this huge, $40 million high performance compute data center just to support one mission. Do you think that's going to change soon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is changing as we speak.
Yeah.
Massive change, and there is. I mean, a few things come to mind right now. But on the defense side, for example, a classified project we're working on is that there is a defense organization, and they have the classical software deployment. So basically, they have the software deployed on premise in a location. Um, if there is an attack and they blow up this location, it's game over.
Mm.
Like you cannot talk to the satellites anymore.
Yeah.
So the project we're working on is basically because we have what we call software defined ground segments. So everything's virtualized. So through our software, you can deploy an air gapped on-prem location. But if there's an attack, you can redeploy exactly the same thing anywhere else in a matter of like, I don't know, 2 hours. It's a game changer. So for resilience, is this example, but there's many others. For example, we are working with a large prime, and this company they operate several satellite missions, extremely expensive satellites, like really big ones,
Hmm.
and for each mission they have in the basement a rack, and they have the software installed for that mission, which is tailored and no one can touch it. And some of the software is written in programming languages that no one in the company can code in anymore.
Yeah.
And they have like this replicated so many times. And they came to us saying like, "Can you guys do like a multi-mission
Mm.
operation center?" And we're like, "Yeah, that's what we do." And now we're implementing this with them.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
suddenly, like the first time their coders got access to our technology, they were like, wow, this is so nice. This is so nice. They were really
Yeah.
blown away because they are used to like old systems with the UIs from the 90s. Um, and this happens a lot that you have like very
Mm,
bright software developers that come out of school. They join the space industry and they have to maintain a system on Windows 95.
yeah.
You know, so
Just to, yeah, this is fascinating. I mean, just to kind of round this out, Alvaro. So LeanSpace, you've been in business about 5 years now. You've been, despite the challenges, you've been able to tap into funding sources and grow your business, and um, I think that certainly become a well-known name within the space startup industry. So what's next for LeanSpace, and where do you see like the big opportunities for your business into the next 12 to 18 months?
I mean, right now we're initial years of the company. We developed the technology and we flight prove it, which is a very big thing in space to de-risk, right? So this was done through different milestones, and since 1 year ago, we have reached this tipping point in which we are credible for like big missions. So we are working with defense, we're working with like national missions, with institutional missions across Europe, in the US also. For example, we have operated a US satellite from the US Gulf Cloud, and I'm not sure there's a lot of European software providers that can say this. Um, so we have reached this maturity point in which we are starting to play in the big league with the big
Mm,
guys. What is happening in the next 12, 18 months is doubling down, like scaling up on this big time. We see massive traction. In the past, we had to go and search for customers. We see now we are getting more and more inbounds. Um, in the industry, people are realizing that now they cannot keep on doing the same things if they want to improve. Improve, I mean, reduce budgets, reduce mission timelines, reduce risks, reduce vendor dependency. They cannot use the same approach they have used for the last 30 years.
mm.
So now we're living actually in a bit of a sweet spot in this sense. And we just closed a funding round that
Congrats, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
and
thank you
you'd
very
mentioned
much.
that something was going on, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, so this happened, and actually we are in a very good position because we have closed a funding round with corporates. So there's a few big organizations like uh, organizations with massive heritage in system integration in space, but also outside of space, on both sides of the Atlantic, so both in Europe and in the US, that are investing in LeanSpace as a strategic alliance to actually go together to market. So they will use our technology to fuel all the ground segments that they're working on and they will be working on in the future. So we see that now LeanSpace is becoming a technical authority, if you will. It's becoming a technology to use if you want to increase the efficiency of your space missions.
That's
That's
awesome.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's so good to hear all your successes, Alvaro. Well, um, just to close this out, thank you so much for joining us. I think this is a very unique interview, Tony.
Yeah, yeah. I've
You
been
know, yeah,
I've been thinking about a few things in the back. Like, there's so many
me too.
interesting little tidbits coming out of this, Alvaro. It's been a really great sort of perspective on the journey.
Thank you. Also, for me, has been a very interesting experience. Kind of a unique interview, talking a bit about like things here and there and how everything connects together. It was very interesting. Thank you.
Are you? I was going to ask you this earlier. So, do you have any folks in the U.S. that work for Lean Space? Do you have a
Um,
presence here?
we have an entity in the US. So we are a French company,
Hmm.
and the HQ is in France, and all the intellectual property is in France. But we do have an entity in the US, basically to serve US missions. We have a handful of US customers since a few years ago. We're growing a lot. We're getting a lot of interest, not only from commercial companies in the US, but also from government. So we learn a few things, and of course, U.S. missions, we need to serve them from U.S. soil with U.S. nationals, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the purpose of the entity.
Yeah. So let me know when you're in town, ever. I think I have some ideas. I'd love to meet with you and kind of work through some of those. But enough of the serious stuff. So we always like to finish this with a fun question. Okay. So, let's try this one out. What is your favorite European comedy? Could be a movie or show or, either one.
Okay, that's a tough one. What comes to mind? There is a stand-up comedian in the UK called Michael McIntyre. The guy's hilarious, and he has this sketch about like how it is to when to leave the house
Hmm.
when you have kids and when you don't have kids. And,
Ooh.
he starts saying like because people that don't have kids they think they know, but they don't.
Yeah.
It's
And then
true.
he does a sketch, and it's hilarious. I have two small kids,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's like yeah,
Oh, I'm definitely
you're
going to look
laughing
that
and
up.
crying at the same time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Um, and actually, like in space, it's a bit the same because people that are not part of the space industry, they think they know, but they don't. Think people outside of space, they think space, like billionaires doing space tourism, and let's focus on Earth instead of like let's first solve the problems on Earth before going somewhere else. Um, and I think there's a lack of education that we have in the industry.
Hmm.
People, for example, they don't realize, and if your audience is non-space professionals, I think this might be interesting for them. For example, like people don't know this, but like more than half of the variables to measure climate change can only be measured from space.
Right.
Hmm.
For example,
Interesting. Yeah.
space is providing, or we provide like like a connectivity all around the globe. Imagine what this will do, for example, for education in remote areas. Space also enables, for example, relief efforts after disasters
Yeah.
in many different ways, communication, through imaging. So space technologies are really used to improve the way on Earth and to protect Earth. So this is happening, and also something that really touches me personally is that pollution on Earth it's a massive problem, and I see a future in which we will shift heavy polluting industry from Earth to orbit.
Mm.
We will, for example, generate energy on orbit and we'll beam it down to Earth. It's been going around in the space industry for 30 years. The problem is budget because it's still
Yeah.
easier to burn coal than to launch solar power satellites. But it will come. Eventually, we will have this kind of capability, harnessing power in space and beaming it down to Earth, which, for unlimited clean energy. So space is more than just billionaires doing space tourism. There's more to it, and we have to be more vocal to educate the people that space is growing and it's really really doing great things for humanity.
That's awesome. Well, Alvaro, I think Tony and I might reach out to you because I mean, I have a great idea for a space startup, and it's a capsule that you launch and you put people you don't really like or evil people on this capsule, and you just launch it in a one-way mission to a space graveyard or some like not even a planet, just get them out of here, right? So that's my idea. If you're interested.
Goodness.
We
I
can
mean, you
provide the
only
control system.
I mean, there's an opportunity for you there too. It's a startup. I'm not going to go build a data center to send bad people away. I'm going to, stand it up, tear it down, right?
All right. Well, on that note, thanks, Alvaro. This fantastic interview. I can feel the passion in it, that you have for the industry and the possibilities for space through the video call. And we really appreciate you giving your time to us today. So, if people want to learn more about you or get in touch or learn about LeanSpace, where can they find you?
I mean, LinkedIn is the obvious place to go. I think that's the easiest. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll put a link to yeah the LeanSpace website and to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes so people can get in touch. But With that, thanks very much for joining us, everyone. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you leave a rating or write a review, even better. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers.
See you later.